Hey guys and gals, this is Jonathan with Harvest Time Preppers, and today posting a video as far as what I'm doing for what I'll call off-grid water supply. I'm actually using this water supply in my shop because there is not a water source here, so I'm having to bring water in. But we need water to wash our hands and wash off equipment and stuff like that. But this would apply for a cabin, for a camp, for just off-grid stuff. So I'm going to go through with you how I've got my water supply set up. As you can see, I'm using a tank here, and I've had that question a few times on some other videos that I've done on another channel. Excuse me, I'm wiping my face because we're here in Florida and it's hot. So I wanted to post this video here as well to show you guys what we're doing for water source with no power. So let me turn the video around and let's walk you through it. Okay, so this is what we have. I've got a 275 gallon tote. Some people say it's 300 gallons or whatever. I've actually got two of them. There's another one sitting back there, you can see right there, and I use that one as well to haul the water. But this is my supply and how I've got it set up, and I'll walk you through why and how I've got it set up. The first being is that we needed water in a location without having to run a water tap costing thousands and thousands of dollars and running water lines and such as that, water meter. So, and we just needed it for emergency reasons or for washing things off and that sort of thing. But you could use this in a cabin for a water source, for off-grid, for the same things we're using it for, or as your water supply. Now granted, if you were going to use it off-grid, you would need to probably put another filtration system on it, or a filter in line, or treat the water itself with some sort of water cleansing tablets, or some people use a cup of bleach, or whatever you want to do. That's not the point of the discussion. The point of the discussion today, the video today, is to show you how to get some water off source and some pretty significant force behind it as well. So what I've got is, we'll start here. I've got this tank, and I've got it set up in an elevated position just on some cinder blocks, and I picked up this tank for like 50 bucks or something like that. And I use that tank over there as my transport tank, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. But like 50 bucks per tank, something like that, and just wash it out real good. You can actually get food grade containers that were used with food only. We don't use this for potable water, so it really wasn't important to us for that, as we're just kind of washing our hands and washing equipment and such. But make sure if you're using it for drinking that you get a food grade container that never had chemicals and blah blah blah, that sort of thing in it. So what I did is I had to figure out how to get some power behind it, because sometimes we hook this up to a pressure washer, and sometimes we hook it up to or we just need to wash our hands. You can see the nozzle down there. We need a little bit to wash off some equipment, tractors, trailers, whatever. And so what I did is I went to Harbor Freight and I got a shallow well pump. Okay, a shallow well pump at Harbor Freight, and I've been running this thing for a couple years now. And it runs really good. It runs off 120 volt. So right there, people are saying, well, I thought you said off grid. Well, you can run it off grid. You can run it also from a solar panel battery pack. You can run it off of a generator. That's why I went with a 120 pump. You can run it, anything that you have as far as power goes. So you may need a solar panel, battery, charge controller with an inverter, that sort of thing, or you can run it off a generator as well. We just run it, we have power here at the shop, but not water. So what I did first things first, and I used to have it set up in tandem. Now we just have a single tank set up. So let me kneel down here. As you can see, we've got a valve on the water tank, and this runs into this Fernco coupling. This is a 2-inch Fernco coupling that goes into the PVC adapter. All of this pipe that we have here is 1 inch. So runs into this adapter. This used to run to another tank, so don't worry about that right now. You could cap that off. And how this works is water feeds around through this pipe down here, and this is very important. This is a check valve. This will not work without this check valve. So the flow goes this way in the check valve, but it does not let water come back through this way. So when this pump pressures up, it's going to pressure up everything on this side, not on this side. Otherwise, it's going to sit there and cycle back and forth because you don't have a check valve, and it's going to be pushing water back and forth into the tank, and you don't want that to happen. So we got this check valve here, all right, and then it flows into the tank. I'm sorry, into the pump, the shallow well pump. So from here, it comes up the outlet, and runs into my spigot. Okay, I brought this down, put a 3/4 inch, a 1 inch to 3/4 inch threaded fitting on there. Everything else is pretty much glue in. And this ball valve allows me to have water past this point, or if I need to cut this off, which I do need to for sometimes. If I need to take the hose off, if I need to do other things, if I need to fill my tank, I'll show you why that's important here in just a moment. But I can turn the water off to my spigot, if you will, to where my hose, again, my hose, we just have it here, and I have a sprayer on the end of it. Okay, but for the most part, I just leave that on. Everything is watertight. Now, the great thing about this is you can also unplug your pump to not have pressure on it when you don't need it, and that way if you spring a leak, it won't run all your water out. Or after every use, you can simply turn your ball valve off on your tank like this, and that will, you know, preserve the water in your tank, and so you don't get a leak or anything like that. I don't have my tank covered because I'm indoors and I'm not worried about algae growing. But anyway, I digress. Back to here. So this is my supply line up and then over to my spigot. So what is all this other stuff? This comes into play when I'm filling my tank. All right. So when I'm filling my tank, you can see I have a pipe set up that goes into the top. All of that back in the back is just spare pipe stuff. It goes into the top of the tank. Let me move my hose here. It goes into the top of the tank, and when I need to fill it, I simply take this off, and that pipe goes directly in to the hole at the top of the tank. Okay, and when it's not in use, to keep rodents and other stuff like that out, I just put it on. I don't put it on all the way because you want that to be able to vent. Very important. Just put it on to cover. That will allow air in and allow your tank to vent. Otherwise, if you're running the pump over there, you will suck this tank down to nothing. I mean, it will just crumble it up, and just you'll have a ball of plastic sitting there. All right, so what do I do whenever it comes time to fill? What I do is I take my other tank, and it's the same type of tank. I take my other tank, and I have the ball valve at the bottom. Okay, so you see this fitting here? That's important. That's a 2-inch fitting. And this will allow me to have the water on whenever I bring the water back, or whenever I'm in transport, this stays closed and the water is off. So I use that tank. I set that tank in the back of my truck, and then I just back my truck up to this area. All right, and that's where this hose comes into play. So what I do is I made this hose with several adapters, whatever. It's a 1-inch hose, 1-inch vinyl hose here. It's got some support in it, so it won't collapse either. A number of fittings I had to go through in order to get to this adapter, this 2-inch adapter. But what I do is I take this, the threaded part, and I put on, this is 1-inch threaded. It goes onto this fitting here like that. Okay, and then I take this end while the tank is sitting in the back of my truck, and I put this end on that fitting that's right there at the bottom, and then I lock it into place. All right, and I open the valve. That starts the water priming to this ball valve. So now I have water pressure up to this ball valve. But what I want to do is I want to get the water into the tank over there. So how do I do that? Okay, so at this point, I block this off, okay, because I'm not trying to get water out, I'm trying to get water in. I open this ball valve. So now what happens? Water flows from my truck into this point, around this pipe, and into the pump. So now I've got water to this point. So now what do? I close this valve, this ball valve here, and I open this ball valve. Okay, and as you can see, let me show you, I can just kind of recycle it. I can just kind of recycle it and show you. As you can see, water will just recycle through the pump because I open this valve and kind of show you. Water is being forced into here. So if you can imagine this water coming out, let me turn this all off. That amount of water coming out of my tank, my tank over there, that's in the back of my truck. Make sure I got everything closed off. So now water is coming out of that tank. Remember, that tank's in the back of my truck. It's coming through this hose, into the pump, up the pipe, and now I am filling with a pump. I'm not waiting on gravity. I'm not waiting. I don't have to get that tank over there higher than this tank over here. It's being force fed because that water comes out of that tank into this hose, and that pump forces it into that container there. So now we got water in the tank, right? So when I got water in the tank, my valves are open. Okay, all of my valves are open. I can kind of show you guys here what we do. I've got this hose, and you can see I've got quite a bit of pressure coming out, right? All because that pump. And what I like about this pump is it will hold pressure for me. Okay, as you can see right now, I'm holding pressure. It's not leaking, it's not doing anything like that. So it's actually holding pressure, and it will continue to hold pressure until it gets down to about 10 or 15, and then it will pump back up to 25 or 30, and it will maintain that 15 to 25 or 30 amount of pressure. And then again, you know, making sure everything's watertight so it will hold pressure. If not, I always recommend turning your spigot off when you're not using the water. And then if you're worried about the pipe breaking or something, or a leak happening somewhere down here in your connections, turn this fitting off so all of your water stays in your tank. I do recommend keeping this tank covered if you live in a very cold environment. And I'm going to cover this back up while I'm thinking about it. If you live in a very cold environment, keep that tank covered. Now, it will be kind of hard to freeze 275 gallons solid, but what you don't want to happen is your pipes to freeze and the water that's in the pump to freeze. If that happens, oh, you will have a mess. So that is my off-grid store water supply, pump, pressure, and again, I call it off-grid. Again, don't beat me up too bad. Yes, I'm running on power here, but if you have any sort of power source, whether it be solar with, again, a battery pack, charge controller, and an inverter, something like that, and you have it stored up, that pump does not take a lot of power, and it will only run to build itself up to pressure. So once it builds up to pressure, it cuts off. So that's the great thing about this. You can use this for a number of things, whether it be in a shop, you don't have a water source, but you can bring water in. See, I've got no problem taking that home in the back of my truck, filling it up, and then coming back down here the next time I'm here, backing my truck right up here to this area, hooking that hose up right there, reversing my valves, and filling my tank up with water. Just gives you a solution without, you know, maybe you live up a mountain, maybe you live, maybe it's just a remote area or whatnot, and you want to just have some water there. Just have some water on site, so you know you're not always lugging it in with jugs or whatever. Again, 200 to 300 gallons of water lasts a mighty long time, and it's just, you know, just keeps you from going to the, maybe you have a creek or something like that, that's your water source. What I would do is I would get maybe a, you know, you have to figure out some way to get water in that tank, and then you could haul it closer to this other tank and get it up to where you're at. Maybe you have a stream and you can keep that full, or I don't know what your situation is. Maybe you're at a place that doesn't have any water at all. Pardon me for wiping my sweat, kind of like we were here, and we just needed some water to work, so we could work and wash things off and not be so nasty all the time. So all right guys, so if you like this video, subscribe, like, share it. I appreciate it. We want to get the word out and help people with little ideas that we come up with, and maybe you have a better idea. I'd love to hear your comments. If we can tweak our little water storage any more than, you know, than what we've shown so far, we appreciate any feedback that you can give us. And we appreciate the comments. We appreciate the shares and the likes and all those things as well. So hey, as always, have a blessed day. And this is Jonathan with Harvest Time Preppers, and we are out.